Buddha once said, "Everything that has a beginning has an ending. Make peace with that and all will be well." Death is something that we as humans don't like to think about, but preparing for our end is something that we all must inevitably face. We invited end-of-life coach Aimee Yawnick to the Open Here set to hear how she is helping people prepare for their final chapter by providing comfort that has them leaving in love. I'm with end-of-life coach Aimee Yawnick. Welcome. So great to have you on Open Here.
Thank you for having me.
So how did you get into this profession?
Unexpectedly, honestly. My background is in fitness and nutrition, and I'm a trained life coach. I kind of put all those things together. I created a side hustle by cooking for busy families, giving them just a little bit of ease and trying to bring healthy meals to their families. And when COVID hit, everybody went home and started cooking for themselves. So my business just kind of ended. It was about a year that I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in this next stage, and my husband recommended that I just go volunteer because I was feeling purposeless. And I figured, okay, I'll go to an animal shelter or something. But then when I started researching, I found an opportunity to become a hospice volunteer, and for some reason that just spoke to me. It was like this voice inside, and I'm old enough to understand that I should listen to that voice inside. And so I became a hospice volunteer, and it was extremely gratifying work. I felt privileged to sit next to people at the end of their lives and to be of service in that way. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I was just going with the flow. And a few months later, my husband and I went on vacation. We were at the airport, and I was looking for a novel, and I came across a novel where the main character was a death doula. And it was like this shock wave went through my body, and I'm like, what is a death doula? So I grabbed the book and I started reading it. And then on vacation, I researched, what is a death doula and how do I become one? That was in December of 21. And in January of 22, I started my year-long certification to become an end-of-life doula, an end-of-life coach, and then to go on to become an end-of-life educator.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know you could go to school or take accreditation for something like that. That's incredible.
Yeah, I got certifications in those three areas.
Wow. Um, so death is something that many people are afraid of. How do you kind of demystify the end of life process?
Really through education and talking about it. I have some amazing tools that I've learned on my way, films and articles and just sharing experiences, but talking about it. We don't talk about death and dying. So when we're faced with it and we're looking at our loved ones who are at the end of life, it can be really scary. So just explaining to people what they can expect to see while they're witnessing their loved one at the end of life, what they can hear. What do these sounds mean? What does this smell mean? Is it okay to touch my loved one? Is it okay to get in bed with them? And just letting people, giving them permission to do what feels right from the heart. So just putting it out, I think of it like these hard conversations as like the gremlins, right? When you shine a light on them, they lose their power. Right. So when you shine a light on these hard conversations, a lot of the fear and anxiety is reduced.
Right. So what kind of services do you offer?
So what I offer is twofold. So as I told you, I was a trained life coach. So as a coach, I'm always looking for ways to be proactive. Instead of having to deal with something when you're in crisis mode and be reactive, if we can take a few steps back and look at what is to come, and we all know that death is coming. If we look at it ahead of time and have conversations and plan for end of life and talk to our family about what's important to us and how we want to be cared for, if we do that ahead of time, it makes it a lot easier on our families and it makes it a lot easier on us because then we get what we want. Our wishes are honored. So as an end-of-life coach, I have a workshop. And I help people to go through a very comprehensive program to answer reflective questions about what's most important to them, what matters most to them in their lives, in a series of different areas like their spiritual life and their relationships, their physical care and their physical environment. The really practical stuff, like getting your affairs in order, that I bring somebody else in there because I don't take care of the legal part of it. And then legacy. How do you want to be remembered in the hearts and minds of your loved ones? So this coaching program, we go very deep into all these areas so that people have a full plan. I call it a comprehensive end-of-life care plan. They have a full plan and their families can understand what's most important to them.
So, what advice do you have for someone who's about to embark on their end of life journey?
So that's an interesting question because you do have people who are very aware that they're at the end of their life. They have a diagnosis or they're very old and they're failing. For those people, I think my answer is the same, but for those people, it's talk to your loved ones. Have conversations, say things that you want to say, clean things up if there are relationships that you want to clean up. Find ways to have peace and gratitude and love for the life that you've lived, and find ways to reduce the anxiety and fear. And a shameless plug for end-of-life doulas, that's what we can help you to do, is to have these conversations so that you can, and the name of my business, Leaving in Love, so you can leave in love and not in fear and anxiety. Now, for the rest of us who don't know with a diagnosis or we're really old, we don't know when our end of life is going to be. Anything can happen to anybody at any time. So we're all just here living our lives thinking that, okay, that's one day out in the future. But another way to be proactive is to do this work now, regardless of your health status. If you have a driver's license and you have a credit card, you should be talking about your end-of-life wishes. You should be having conversations about what's important to you in your life. And hopefully it's years, decades down the road, but when you get really clear about what's important to you, you can start living in alignment with those values, and life gets really awesome because you're living honoring what matters most to you. And then fast forward to that time when you're on your deathbed, you can leave in love. You can leave surrounded by gratitude and appreciation for the life that you lived.
So, what about for the rest of us? Do you have any advice, especially the holidays coming up? How do we grieve in a way that makes sense to us?
Grieving is very personal. Grieving is very intimate. Um, I would say that there is no right or wrong way to grieve, that you should trust your instincts, that you should ask for help, that you should not do it alone. The holidays can be really hard. And I think it's really important to talk about your loved one, include them in, whatever holiday traditions feel right for you. You have permission to not do any of it. If you're just not feeling like you can manage, we just had Thanksgiving. If you don't feel like you can manage these big meals and having everybody over, or even being in an environment where you're supposed to be feeling joyful, don't do it. Give yourself permission to take a break and rest. But if you are prepared to have these celebrations and to do the traditions, bring your person along with you. Bring a picture of your loved one. Even put a picture at the table. And, when you go around talking about what you're grateful for this year, talk about that person. What are the memories? Show pictures, watch videos, bring them into the celebration so that their memories live on.
Love that. How should we be preparing for the end, even though we aren't dying per se? Like, I know we're constantly dying, but how do we prepare for those of us who might not know what our expiration date is?
Conversations, talking about just bringing death into your conversation. We're all heading in that direction. I mean, at the bare minimum, you hear everybody say to get your affairs in order. Bare minimum, you want to protect what you've worked your whole life for. Right? So have the will, have the estate plan, have the advance directives. It's really important to identify a healthcare agent who you trust will follow through with your end-of-life wishes. And it's not just things like whether you want to be intubated or have CPR performed on you or a feeding tube. Like those are really important things to talk about depending on the situation that you're in, but also how do you want to be cared for? Like the gentle, soft touches. I like really soft, cozy things. So I want pajamas that are soft and cozy. I want a blanket that's soft and cozy. I don't like my feet to be too cold or too hot. So, loved one, check in on me. Like, touch my feet. I don't like lotions that are really, really sweet and flowery, but I love like a citrusy grapefruit, like little details that the hospice volunteer won't know about, the nurse won't know about, but these people that you're sharing your end of life wishes, they get it and they can give you and they want to give you your end of life wishes. They want to follow through with and honor them.
Because it's what we deserve for sure.
Yeah. So those kinds of things are how you can prepare. And I will say that this workshop that I offer helps you prepare in a very comprehensive way. And we do dig into things like, where do you want to be at the end of your life? Do you want to be at home, like no matter what? Do you want to be surrounded by family, or is it more important for that one special person to be with you? Do you want to be, facing a window where you can see what's going on outside? Do you want the windows open? It's just thinking about things like that. And something magical happens when you start to talk about this stuff. You you reduce the fear and the anxiety, and you start to invite death into the conversation. And I don't want to say we befriend death because that's a hard pill to swallow,
Mm.
but we at least see that it doesn't have to be as scary as we make it out to be.
Now, are you personally afraid of death?
I'm not. So my first experience of death, I was 7 years old when my grandfather died. And, I think back then, it was get the kids out of the room. Just move the kids away. And I remember being told to leave the room, like we were brought somewhere else. I didn't question it, but I didn't fear it either. I didn't think I was being kept from something that was scary. It just felt like our life cycle included death. My dad died when I was 25 years old. That was awful. But it felt like, okay, this is what's happening. Like this is part of life. Now, when I get to that place, when I'm on my deathbed, I don't know. I think maybe we all feel a little bit of fear of the unknown. We don't know what's coming next. But it doesn't scare me. I don't fear death.
How does this profession fulfill you personally? Is this your
Mm.
calling?
Oh my God, yeah. I don't think you can do this work without it being a calling.
Right.
Um, ooh, it gives me purpose. It is a privilege to sit next to somebody at the end of their life. Um, yeah, it's fulfilling in a really hard to explain way where we all need to be seen and heard. And to witness somebody during this final challenge of life while they're laboring, they're separating their body from their spirit or their soul or whatever it is that you believe, to be witnessed during that time is a privilege and an honor. And that's just how it feels to me. It feels like a calling, and the sitting bedside feels that way, and then doing the work, the coaching work, makes me feel like I'm helping somebody to get prepared for that end of life moment. And so that they're not walking in, looking around this dark and scary room, wondering what's ahead of me. They've at least had some conversations about what it might be like and how they want to show up.
Wow. Well, I'm happy you're showing up. Thank you so much for all your incredible work, and thank you for being here today. Hey friend, thanks for stopping by. If you like this video by the local scene, share the love and give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe.